Welcome back, everyone. Always great to know that you're checking out what we have to share with you, because I'm really proud of this book that Andrea wrote, and I'm happy to be talking about it with you guys with her. This one is really personal to me. I mean, not that it's any less personal to her, because it affected both of us. This one's about parenting and how you separate and
how you split when there's kids present.
yeah, when kids are involved, it gets very, very important that it be handled well.
Yeah. If you've gone through divorce, well, we're in the state of Arizona, and it's required that you take a parenting class before your divorce is finalized, where they basically tell you how not to be a jerk.
Yeah.
With your ex and your kids. And I took this class with my ex, and we sat together, and we had to sign a waiver to be able to do that, because apparently that's not very common. But the whole thing was lessons in excuse me, not using the kids against each other, or asking the kids about the other parent. Like, there's all this stuff that seems like common sense, but when there's feelings involved and relationship isn't resolved, maybe they're stuck in the anger process that you still, these feelings can get really put on the kids, and it's not fair to them. It's not kind to them. And you're setting an example for your kids on what relationships look like, what divorce looks like, what adults interacting looks like. Whatever you're doing, you're showing them how that's how it is. So what kind of example do you want to set if there's kids involved when you're ending relationship?
So let me just cover the things that are really present with me. The first one is staying in a relationship for the kids is complete and utter nonsense. There may be some outlier reasons why that might be good, but we're not talking about the outliers. We're talking about like probably 90+% of the population. I can tell you in a way that I'm very careful how I say this, because I'm really not trying to throw missiles at my ex. All I'm saying is that the way that she and I got along together did not model to my two amazing daughters, our two amazing daughters, how a man should be treated, how a woman should be treated, how to respect one another, how to communicate, how to be honest with feelings. Because I can promise you, kids don't give like an F word about what you say to them. They watch what you model. And when you model that mom and dad are clearly at each other's throat about something, but we're just going to pretend like that's normal, we're never going to deal with it. They know that. They know what's going on. I can tell you that at my divorce, my daughters were 10 and 8. And one of the biggest fears I had was that there was going to be this irreparable harm done to them. I can tell you now, it's been years later. I have a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old. And after the divorce, I was able, obviously, to still be their dad. And I gave them as many tools as I could, as much brutal honesty for my own transparency as I could that was appropriate. And they're doing well. Their relationships are on
they're on a good trajectory.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of tools to deal with themselves and how they feel. And it has nothing to do with any exes. That's again, this is about what are you choosing to model for your kids, and whether you and your ex are modeling it differently or not, you can only control yourself here. It's the same thing. Same thing in every situation. Kids are really, really smart.
Yes, they are.
And their formative years in their life, you know, from birth until about 12, is the time when they're observing and taking in and watching everything you do, feeling everything you say, and they remember it in their cells, whether or not they remember it consciously.
Yep.
So that energy and example that you're setting for them, they see that as if it's an instruction manual. And if that's the only reference they have with how people interact, they're kind of screwed. So if you can give them a good instruction manual, it gives them pieces to work with later to create good relationships in their life.
Yeah, and this works after the breakup too,
Yes,
especially because you can't fake sincerity. You and I, we were all kids, and we remember watching adults that, I'll just put it bluntly, they were full of shit and they were never honest. There were some parts of them, like parts of the population that we saw as adults, that were like that. So when they try to go, oh, everything's fine, you know, you can see the fake sincerity.
Yeah.
So after the divorce, it was up to me, because all I could do was, again, deal with myself. I did my very best to model sincerely that I don't wish your mother ill. I want her to be happy and healthy. I don't want anyone to suffer. And I'm not going to talk about all this negative stuff. I'm just going to talk about my part in things. And I've told them, when you get older, we can have conversations, but it's not, I don't want to skewer their mom to the kids and create this bias and this poison well.
Well, the thing that you can say to your kids is that we all have our own experiences of each other.
Yeah.
So your experience of your ex is yours. Your kid's experience of their parent is theirs. And when their experience of you is also theirs. So whatever you're doing, the best path to self-awareness and how you're modeling and showing your kids how to be, you know, this is how we interact with each other. This is how we communicate. This is how we respond when someone else isn't so nice to us. We always have a choice in this, and our kids are so smart. They're so freaking smart. They're way smarter than we were.
Let me share with you something very specific that I did, like within, I don't know, a month or so after the divorce, because that's about when everything seemed to settle and the kids, my daughters, were like starting to really pay attention. I empowered them. I told them they have a right to their feelings. They don't owe me an explanation. They can be angry, pissed, hateful, anything they need. And I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to correct them. I'm going to listen. I've told them that for however long they're alive, at some point in their future, they may remember something from their experience, either in when we were married or after the divorce, and they may want to talk to me about it and clear it with me. They have that right. The worst thing you could do, among many things, is to tell your kids that their feelings have no basis in reality and to minimize them or cut them down. You want to talk about making sure that your kids are really fucked after the divorce, do that to them.
Yeah, it's tough because a lot of times our emotions come out and our kids witness them, and that's enough. It's all it has to be. So from my experience, my separation and divorce was very amicable, long-term. The kids were very involved, and our conversations were that we need to do different things now, and we have decided to do them this way. So I want to go down this road, and your dad wants to go down this road, and we love each other enough to know that we're not playing the same game anymore. You know, I tell him I like to play Scrabble, he likes to play Monopoly. So I want him to play Monopoly and find people to play that with.
Yeah.
And the way that the kids understood that was, yes, we still love each other. Yes, this is an ending, but it's also a different beginning. And present day, my relationship with him is friendship, and I would take care of him and he would take care of me if it was needed. And our kids see that as an example.
And I can tell you, I have never seen a relationship between exes as good or as healthy or as friendly as the one you have with your ex. And it's inspired me to make a lot of changes, even in the way I think of things. Like when you told me that wonderful little piece of their experience of me is their own business and they have a right to it, I'm like, well, that sure made things simpler. Because that's the same thing for our kids. They have their own experience and they have a right to it. And then I also told them I have a right to my feelings. So some days I may not be able to, you know, be the knight in shining armor. And they were like, well, fine. You let us be ourselves, we'll let you be you. When you empower your kids after this period, they will help you heal, because it'll be one less thing that you're wondering, like, did I screw that up irreparably too? Or whatever you're going through. I think the biggest thing that I can praise my ex and our divorce was basically filing papers and a couple sheets of paper. It was just very simple because all we wanted was it to be over and to make sure that the kids had what they needed and that there was no drama. And we've pretty much been able to keep to that.
Yeah, those documents are important, and if you are going through separation and divorce, getting your divorce right, you know, getting what you need, making sure that everything's done right and in place. We were both able to do it amicably enough that we didn't have to get into a big lawyer fight. But those things are important because you will be leaning on that for as long as your kids are minors. So make sure that it makes sense for you and be honest about what you need, even in a divorce. For me, I had challenges because I didn't have a job after my son was born. I was a mom and I had several small business pursuits I was doing, but I didn't have like a full-time job, and he didn't want me to. And I loved being home with the kids when they were really little. But it got to a point where I was like, okay, you know, I kind of want to get back into the world and getting out and doing things, and the kids going to school. But I needed that support, and he was happy to support me to be home with the kids. And that was a big part of our separation and divorce. And I love that I had that time with them, and it was wonderful. So that took a lot of the stress out of like, okay, now I have to go figure out how to get a job and put them in daycare, you know, like that was our situation. And every situation's different. So
yeah, there's also something, if you're new to this, if you're just starting this experience, both of us can tell you from our own personal experience with this, time is a really funny thing because, like I said, my daughters were 10 and 8 at the time of the divorce, and my child support goes until they're 18 or out of high school, and there is nothing to be gained by making the initial stages a big monstrous pain, because at some point, you know, like 8 years later, it's going to be over, and you're going to be going through 8 years a lot quicker as an adult than a kid. You know, like time gets sorts of speeds up perceptibly when you get older. So if you're screwing around and you're fighting for things that really don't mean anything, and you're still going through the grieving process while you're trying to do a divorce or a separation, you're gonna don't create landmines for yourself that you think you've made some big win by having, because when you least want it to happen, when the kids are finally old enough to be much more sovereign, and they realize you're the one that laid the landmines, guess who's not going to have a relationship with them as they become adults? Have you ever seen anyone who treated the other one like a monster throughout the time that the kids were still minors, where those kids didn't eventually figure out what they knew all along and then treated you guys accordingly? Like, you're not going to win if you make this a big problem.
yeah, going through this with grace is a big deal. It's not always easy, but it always ends up well.
Yeah.
And the other piece in this chapter is about your extended family and maybe pets. Like if you have a dog with your partner, whether you're married or not, like you got kind of a custody thing with a pet. And
Yeah.
I know I've seen people go through that, sharing custody with their dog. But you know, in most cases, do what's in the best interest of the dog. You know, where is the dog going to be happiest and most well cared for? And if it's with your ex, then let the dog go. You know, let your ex have the dog, or you know, whatever that agreement is.
Or the African gray, or the guinea pigs, or whatever.
Yes,
Yeah.
all the things. But all these little things can keep that entanglement going. So when you can resolve and let go of that, it's kind of helpful. And then the extended family, if you got a relationship with your ex's family and friends, you have to detach from that while you're going through your process. And if you have a relationship with them, you can start a fresh connection after that process. But you don't want to involve them unless they're there to support you. And I've had friends that have gotten divorced that were in our friend group, and our friend group literally kind of split, and we each supported them. So they each had people. And it was really a good thing for them to have support from their friends, knowing that we were still friends with their ex, and that was okay. But we took sides for a minute and we let them let them feel that support. So extended family, friends, pets, you're breaking up, whether it's a dating relationship or a marriage or anything. There's always other people involved, not just your kids, but you may have long-term other couples you've hung out with, like all that stuff will come up to be dealt with. It's not
Yeah.
your priority.
Yeah, be the bigger person. Don't make people pick sides. Because
well, what I'm saying is when you ask for them to support you through it, it's different than
yeah, it's
different than enrolling your friends against your ex.
yeah, that's what I'm talking
That
about.
kind of a taking sides.
Yeah, because they're all going to decide how they feel about it on their own and have their experience of you and your ex, and they have a right to that as well, and they may not feel the way you want them to, and you have to let that go too.
Yeah, they may be friends with both of you separately later, or or one of you, or neither of you. And again, yeah, people have their own experience, and that's not your business.
Yeah.
This is a difficult topic in chapter, because it is where a lot of people have resistance because they don't want to affect other people. They don't want to disappoint their family.
Yeah.
They don't want to, drop a rock in their friend group that they're gonna break up, and it creates drama. And we get to decide how mature we can be around dealing with these things and communicating and getting our support and going through this grief process of losing relationships and then forming them in different ways.
Yeah, when you're involving other living beings in your relationship, like especially children or buying a pet, there's an implicit sort of agreement you've made with those living beings that they're coming into a world to have a family to be in. And when you take that from them, you have to own that. You have to own that you ended that agreement with those children, that they no longer are going to have the family that you implied they were going to have when they arrived. And you have to own that you're part of it and work with it in a good way.
Yeah.
In a way that's going to make them, everyone.
Yeah, communication of, we want everybody to win.
Yeah.
And what everybody winning means is that we can't be together anymore, and we're going to be better, and we want to be good parents for you. So we're going to continue our journey differently. And like I said, kids are really smart, so they understand that. And when they see love and they see your self-ownership, you're teaching them how to interact with other people, and it's the best gift you can give them.
It is. Thanks, guys.